course.
The truth of the matter is, though, Gemma, is that by putting them in hotels to help their billionaire donors, it's actually served as a great hypnotic tool to get people all scared of immigration, because that's what they want. It's a massive distraction to the fact that they're really, really, really making fundamental changes. The biggest risk to everybody, and I'll say it to you a million times over, the biggest danger to all of us is the fact we've got illegal food flooding in here. That means you could go into a takeaway, eat a kebab, and the bloody thing could kill you.
Where's the food coming
risk
from?
to you than an immigration.
Of course. Where's it coming from?
It's coming from it's coming from the EU, but it's food that they wouldn't be able to sell.
No, Al, it's not necessarily. It's not necessarily from the EU.
Go on.
Everything, more or less, that arrives in this country, the majority of the food that comes into this country comes via Rotterdam. If it comes from India, it's sent to Rotterdam. And we left the internal organs which filtered out the quality of food which we were in, which meant we didn't need to have any border checks. And then we have implemented border checks which are as useful as a chocolate teapot. They are absolutely pathetic. And I've got people going on to me, I'm worried about immigration. Well, I'm really, really worried about this because A, there's a risk of disease, there's a risk of dying from food poisoning. And yes, it would stop the migrants coming in. And if they really wanted to stop the migrants coming in, they should open up options for them to apply in embassies in other countries across the world, where we've got embassies in every bloody country. So it is actually being used as a massive bell to hypnotise a huge swathe of the electorate. And this week, Keir Starmer proved, and with his reply yesterday in the House of Commons, that he is up for the game. And he gave in a reply yesterday that John Redwood would have given, and he, he's done, done, absolutely done. He needs to go, and that's where my fight is, because the Labour Party needs to get on. Because if they don't replace him, we seriously have got the reality of probably Nigel Farage winning.
Yeah, he's literally rolling out the red carpet for them by pandering to what he thinks is their base rather than having any kind of vision, and also neglecting like the swathes of people who voted Green, Lib Dem, Labour, and actually I thought there was a fabulous clip which we put in our podcast this week, Kevin Maguire on GMB, and he was just so fed up, Labour man through and through, and talking about how, the by-election, which they lost by 6 votes, where the turnout wasn't fantastic. They lost by 6 votes. And he said every single doorstep that the Labour people were speaking to, they didn't care about migration. It didn't come up. They cared about the loss of PIP, the disability cuts, and the winter fuel allowance.
It's the betrayal. It's the same as Nick Clegg and the tuition fees. It's betrayal.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, also, Starmer, you just think, so you hear him back in the day saying one thing. Nobody really knows who he is. And I know he's being advised. And, on a kind day, I'm like, okay, he's playing this sort of weird political bullshit game. But how can he sleep? That speech. Some people were saying to me, oh, no, it's not. The wording is different. They're so desperate to still be like, no, I can't go through this again.
Said strangers.
But he had Tories.
He said strangers.
I know, exactly. And he's an intelligent man. And also, this is the hot potato. So, you're the bloody prime minister. Every word that you say is going to be raked over. So that speech better be perfect. So they knew what they were doing. They know the dog whistles. And I just find that completely unacceptable.
He's meant to be a human rights lawyer, for goodness sake.
I slightly looked at this as, it reminded me of Otto von Bismarck, but in a really insane way. So Bismarck, when he came into power, he's known as the Iron Chancellor, probably one of Germany's greatest chancellors. He had a problem with socialism. That's what his view was. He was like, I've got a problem with socialists. How do I get rid of it? And he co-opted their policies. So they were one of the first countries in the world to bring in health insurance, the pension, and workers' insurance, which is what all the socialist parties have been doing. And then that just completely took the wind out of them, because they were like, well, he's nicked all of our policies, implemented them, and they're popular. And I sort of looked at what Starmer did, and we probably are going to head in this direction because you brought him up a few times, and I've done a bit of watching, which is Glassman and McSweeney. You've name dropped McSweeney already. And I watched that and I had to listen to what he said. It was quite funny because he chose different words. He wants nationalism and socialism. Where have we heard that before? What does that turn it into? But the thing is, Bismarck was like, let's just get some of these popular policies in, sort out the population. Even though I don't like them, they're popular enough to keep me in power. And I can do all these other right wings. And what you've just said there is so fascinating because he's co-opted the rhetoric, but he hasn't done anything to support the population to get them on board to allow that rhetoric to flow through. In fact, he's done the exact opposite. It's almost like they've looked at Bismarck and then misunderstood everything about the principle of what he was doing to help the population to get them on board. And you're going, wow, you are... It just seems to be that all these guys are just fucking stupid.
Well, the other thing that I thought was really vital when Labour got in was that, and it might sound a little simplistic, but I thought that everybody needs to feel better off fast.
Yeah.
Right? Because let's just talk about people who aren't engaged with politics and getting on, they watch the news, whatever, but they're not, like we are obsessed with all these different things. Essentially, everybody feels a bit skint. Everybody. I've got friends who, they're on two incomes. They might have a couple of kids, live in a very average house, and they can't afford to go on holiday.
Nope.
And they can't. They're like, it's my mum's birthday, but I can only afford and they've got two incomes, and they're in the prime of their life. So I'm just saying, everybody. We talk about the poverty and the working classes, the middle classes, and the upper middle classes are pretty bloody squeezed. So, in my view, the really dangerous thing that Farage is also saying is about raising the level of income tax threshold, which actually I think should be done because it's been a fiscal drag for so long. You've obviously got to find the money, and leaping it up to 20 grand. Every economist says he would absolutely screw the economy, but that's because he hasn't costed it. But actually, you could tax the wealthy, and you could therefore do that. And then every bugger would feel a little better off. And personally, I think instantly people would feel more affable and more like, okay, I know it's simplistic, but
you've had Gary Stevenson. You've had Gary Stevenson on your show, and he's been saying this for quite some time.
I don't know if he's been talking about the income tax threshold, but he certainly is all about tax the wealthy. Yes, assets over 10 million quid. And he's talking about everybody else just being eaten up because
there's also a massive tax dodge for NLPs. Lawyers, architects, and it costs billions of pounds. It costs the taxpayer billions of pounds a year, and they're not going anywhere near that. And the inheritance tax, which is only 4% pay it, but rolling it out into SMEs and into farms, is only going to raise $500 million by 2030. It's nothing. Yeah. They actually pay $500 million a year in subsidies to the Drax greenwashing ripoff, which actually goes to wealthy American landowners to cut down their trees and send wood chips over here to burn supposed, green fuel. So there's lots of things they could have done. They're not telling the truth. Their numbers don't add up, and they're definitely doing, mousetrap politics. It is that. It's an extension of what the Tories did.
I mean, picking on disabled people. It's like, are you serious, Labour? Really? Those are your optics? Pensioners and disabled people. Lovely.
But it's almost like they want to make people angry, Gemma. And it's almost they are doing everything they can to actually help that rage to really help Farage. And Peter Foster was on James O'Brien this morning talking about the reset. And he pointed out, I was screaming as it came through, for all the flack they're getting for this reset, which won't be able to do much. It won't release the growth that we need because, as I said, the borders are in such a mess. To even get a veterinary agreement will take years. It's easier to join the single market and go back into that system of, I told you, filtering through stuff, get rid of Sevington and all of that absolute nightmare. But he's going through this pain of the reset, which is going to trigger them saying all of this rubbish again anyway. Most of the people that want Brexit don't understand the detail, and they will believe that he's bringing back freedom of movement. even though he's not. So he might as well have just bloody gone for the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then instantly sort our economy out.
Isn't it interesting that the deficit created by Brexit is the exact same amount they had to raise the tax by?
Yeah.
And it's then not talked about. And he could have turned that into a boogeyman. He could have said,
it never, ever does. Never, ever, ever actually fights them on the things that he could win on. He's just so frustrating. Go for Farage on the NHS. Go for Farage on your uncosted economics. Go for Farage on the fact that we can't send anybody back who's already applied for asylum because of Brexit.
And what he's done to fishing and farming.
What he's done to fishing, what he's done to farming. Yeah.
and fishing.
Insane. Why are they so bad at their job?